Hello everyone and welcome to the final round of the Grand Chess 2 Rapid event. It's Fabiano Caruana with the white pieces against Alexander Grischuk, and well, it's a really exciting game. We don't have a photo of the matchup as like I said, it's a game of the final round, so perhaps they still haven't uploaded the photos, but we do have a nice close-up of Alexander Grischuk, so let's just enjoy that for a second. There you have it. Don't know if it's from round 9 or maybe it's from round 7. Hard to say if we can, figure it out from anything. But as he looks very refreshed here, I would say it's maybe from round 7, not from round 9. But still, hard to say. There you have it. Now let's enjoy the game. Caruana has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We have e5, knight to f3, knight to c6. Sorry about that. We have bishop to c4 and bishop to c5. So the Italian game is on the board, and I don't need to mention that the Evans Gambit b4 was not played in this game. But I will mention that I am preparing a very nice Evans Gambit game very soon for you. So c3, we have knight to f6, and now comes d3. We have d6, Fabiano castles, we have a6, making room for the bishop on a7, and now a4, preparing b4 to grab more space on the queen side, bishop back to a7, and now rook to e1. And now, as we've been covering a lot of Italian games lately, we always mention that knight g4 isn't really doing anything, rook e2 perfectly defends the f2 pawn. So we have castles here by Grischuk, and now h3, not allowing bishop to g4. We have bishop to e6 now by Grischuk, and now Fabi captures. We have bishop captures, pawn captures, and now b4. Knight to h5, going after that f4 square, similar like we've analyzed during the Altibox Norway Championship in the game between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Ding Liren. We have rook to a2. As you have the rook here, the queen is probably coming over to f6. The other rook will also join f8. When this rook moves, the bishop also attacks f2. So you will need all the additional defenders of the f2 square as possible. And now comes queen to e8. In the game we mentioned Maxime Vachier-Lagrave versus Ding Liren, queen to f6 was played by Ding in the Altibox Norway Championship this year. That game ended in a draw, but here we have queen to e8. And this is a new move that has never been played before. Interestingly, Ding's queen to f6 is the engine's top recommendation, whereas queen to e8 is the engine's second recommendation, and it's often something that grandmasters try, to get each other out of preparation, not to play the absolute engine favorite, but maybe the second or the third engine's favorite, which doesn't really compromise your position. So there's a better chance that your opponent doesn't know the reply by heart. So here, a completely new position. Now it's Fabi's turn. We have knight to a3. The knight now prepares to jump over to c4, and we have knight to f4. So here, you could wait for queen to g6 and only then capture the knight, but as queen to g6 is definitely going to be played, you want to get this rook to f6, bring this rook over to f8, you might as well capture it immediately. And this is what Fabi does. We have bishop captures and now rook captures. Pawn captures does fix your pawn structure, but it takes away control from black of the d4 square, and it's something you don't want to give up, as this dark square bishop is just a monster, and you don't want to allow d4. So by capturing with the rook, you keep an eye on the d4 square. We have knight to c4 now, and here comes queen to g6, already threatening rook to f8, and then maybe some rook captures an f3 action. We have b5 by Fabi, and Grischuk ignores the threat. We have rook a to f8. So now, what do you get? If you go for this line, bishop captures, then black captures on f3. And you don't have any sort of a mating attack or anything, but black will, come on top after all of the exchanges. Knight e3, you have to block the dark square bishop. Bishop captures on e3, rook captures, rook captures, and now after f captures, you're going to capture on c6, you're going to be up a pawn, and, well, black's position is just a little bit better here, even though we do have this very weird pawn structure in the center. Not sure I've ever seen anything like that. But okay, after rook a to f8, Fabi, of course, doesn't allow this. We have rook c to d2, getting another defender here, and now comes knight to e7. We have d4 by white, and now comes queen to f6. So now when you have this rook, queen, rook battery piling up on the f2 pawn, also the bishop here is eyeing the f2 pawn, it doesn't seem all that likely that this knight will ever move from here. We have d captures on e5, and now d captures on e5. Again, you want to keep an eye on the d4 square. You don't want to allow it blocked somehow anytime soon. We have b captures on a6, b captures on a6, and now queen to e2, getting more defenders here, and now the rook to f1 is the idea. With a5, as also the queen attacks the a6 pawn, so not sure if capturing this would be a good idea as you are under siege, but just in case it comes up later, get that pawn to safety. With rook to f1, and now Grischuk starts an all-out attack with g5, preparing g4, and here knight to c4 by Fabi. A nice attack on the a5 pawn and also a double attack on the e5 pawn. And here Grischuk plays knight to g6. He defends the e5 pawn, but also just straight out g4 was also possible. H captures and only then knight to g6 is one way to play it, and then you can maybe capture with the rook and continue the game in this fashion. But okay, we have knight to g6. It's a rapid game, and then now knight to h2. Now with the queen and with the knight, the push of the g pawn is prevented. We have queen back to g7, and now comes queen to d3. We have knight to h4. Now with the path has been cleared for the pawn to be pushed and maybe even supported with h5. And here the engines give knight captures on a5 as better for white, and they say that g4 is really not a problem for black, but who would really capture a pawn in a situation like this? So if you're not really a pawn grabber, you're not gonna go for this, because g4, h captures on g4, and now after queen to f7, queen to g3 just defends everything, and you will be able to fend off the attack. But after knight to h4, Fabiano played knight to g4, and he allowed Grischuk a lot of momentum for the price of this e5 pawn. With h5, now he will have nice support for his g4 push. With knight g captures on e5, and now g4. With h captures, and now Fabi blocks any further advancements with queen to g3, but now comes queen to g5. So what do you play here? We have rook to e2, and now king to g7. We have knight to d3, attacking the rook here, and now what do you play? Here Grischuk played knight 4 to f6. Also possible is knight to f3, rook to f3, but rook to f3 is forcing a draw, because here after g captures and knight captures with check, king to g2, you get knight to h4 check, and now you can repeat this, knight f3 check, knight check, or you can go king to h1, but then it's a different kind of draw. It's rook f3, and then after queen e5 check, you get a trade of queens, and now rook h3 is a forced draw. King g1, rook g3 check, you cannot capture due to the nice pin here. King h1 check, and that's a threefold repetition draw. So Grischuk doesn't go for this. He goes rook to f6. He wants to keep the attack live. And here, best idea for Caruana is rook b1. He needs to prepare this rook to b7 move, as the queen already attacks the c7 pawn. But here, Caruana decided that it was okay to grab a pawn. So he didn't like this capture, but he does like this capture, as it comes with check. So queen captures on c7, we have rook to f7 attacking the queen, and now queen to e5. We have queen to h6, now creating some deadly threats. Knight to f3 is one such threat that would force open the g-file. So queen back to g3, but now it doesn't work. Here Grischuk just played very nice move. King to f8 is possible, but king to h8 even better. He's now just freeing the g-file for the rooks. And now there really isn't all that much you can do. Knight to f3 is the threat, and I don't even have a position to ask you to pause the video in, as knight f3 is just unavoidable. You could try queen h2 or something like that, but it doesn't work. Still, knight checks, and the queen trade doesn't help you. Even if queen captures, rook captures, you don't have a good reply to rook g7 mate, because your rook on e2 is also hanging, and it doesn't help you if you move the rook, create some room for your king. Still rook g7 check, king f1, and of course you ignore the rook h1 is mate. So here Fabi tried rook to b2, but it doesn't help. Knight to f3 check. We have g captures on f3, g captures on f3, and now there's no defense against rook g7. The queen is lost. Fabiano played rook to f to b1, and now rook to g7 just traps the queen. Queen captures. We have queen captures with check. King to f1, and now Grischuk just continues in a strong fashion. We have rook to h6 threatening mate in 1. So king to e1, and now okay, we can use this as a pause the video moment. Pause the video and find a forced mate in 3. It's a very nice sequence, so feel free to do it. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. Of course, you are an excellent mater in 3. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, queen captures on c3 check. We have king to d1, and now, well, you can either capture the knight, but even better is, not better, but maybe just nicer for me. Rook h1 check, knight blocks, and now this rook captures on e1 is checkmate. Fabio, of course, did not wait for this. After queen captures on c3, Fabio resigned the game, and a very nice victory for Alexander Grischuk in the final round of the Paris Rapid event. So the Rapid event is now over. I will not mention the standings, as I'm planning to show another video tomorrow morning. Then we're going to check out the standings. But tomorrow, I believe there is no rest day. Tomorrow the Blitz starts, so we're going to enjoy some nice Blitz games in Paris. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Really interesting. Fabi didn't go for this pawn capture when it was possible, but he went for this pawn capture, and then it was no longer possible, unfortunately for him. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Michael Larson and Primož Sviligoy for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing what we are currently doing. Of course, checking up on your suggestions, and so on and so on. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.